Good evening, everyone. We're going to open the meeting now. I want to first read an official notice. This is a continuation of the open public hearing of the Northborough Community Preservation Committee. Today is January 4th, 2024. We are in the Select Board Meeting Room, the second floor of the Northborough Town Hall, 63 Main Street, for the purpose of reviewing proposals for the FY 2025 Community Preservation Act funds. These applications are available for review at the town's website, www.town.northborough.ma.us/community-preservation-committee, or in person at the Planning Department, Northborough Town Hall. I am John Campbell, Chairman. We got that out of the way. In our agenda tonight, I flipped it around to consider the minutes first, and I decided it makes sense to consider the minutes and any questions from the last meeting at the start of the next meeting. So, having said that, I open the floor if anyone has any comments or amendments to the minutes from the December 7th meeting. I have just one, and it relates to the Affordable Housing Development Reserve Fund application and the discussion there. I just think we should make the notes clear that the application and the discussion was with regard to funds to the NAHC, not to the CPC Affordable Housing Reserve. That confused me in the way the application title was written, and I just wanted it to be clear in the minutes as well. So, for instance, the very first sentence says Mr. Leaf requested $126,855.65 to bring the reserve fund back to $500,000. I thought we might amend that to say to bring funds available to the NAHC back to $500,000. Is that sufficient? Okay. And I don't think it's described quite the same way anywhere else. So with that, I would offer that amendment.
I'd move to approve the amended minutes. Second.
Thank you for the second. All in favor of the amended minutes approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Yes, thank you. Todd is not here.
Right, as well. Was not here.
And he was not as well. So 7-0 and 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. One other piece of business that is not so much public. Stuart Saginaw gave a great presentation to us at the November meeting. I brought a thank you card to the December meeting to have a sign and totally forgot about it. So I'm doing it now. If you guys could just sign your names. I want to send that off to him. And in the meantime, the rest of the agenda is to reconsider the applications that were first brought to us at the December 7th meeting. And we have one bit of news in that the application for the Milliken Middle School courts renovation and creation was rescinded today by the applicant, Ally, the recreation director, since the proposed budget to do the work has come in so high that they don't think it's the right time to present it. Ally, any comment on that? Have I presented that correctly?
You have, absolutely. I mean, at this point, we got the estimate today. Scott and I sat down and talked, and we just don't think it's the right environment with things that are going on in town to ask the CPC for almost $3 million to do the project. So we're going to pass for right now and try and reevaluate and come up with a different plan.
Do you think a smaller scope is something that you might consider?
We're not really sure, because either way, we have to come up with some sort of drainage system underneath the courts. We can replace them and they'll just crack again very close in the future, so it's sort of wasteful to do that. I'm not really sure how we can get around the cost of the project at this point, so it's something we're going to have to sit down and try and figure out, and hopefully collaborate with the schools
Very well. So moving on from that, you did have another application with regard to the upgrade of the pickleball courts for soundproofing, and in your absence last time, Scott obviously covered for you well, gave us all the details. Would you like to add anything to that?
Pass something out.
Sure.
I know that you guys talked about a few things at the last meeting, had some questions, so this is sort of a follow-up.
Thank you.
No, wait, one more.
Oh,
Have an extra, that's yours?
can I just borrow it?
I'll share with you. I have it. Wow.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, I just wanted to let you guys know that these are just 2 emails from some of the neighbors that had contacted me previously. We also got some phone calls, and I've spoken to some people who use the park actively, whether they're walking the track or using the pavilion, anything like that. I know it's newsworthy, and you've all heard over the summer the noise nuisance of pickleball. So this shouldn't really come as a surprise. We built it with the best intentions, and as you know, if you drive by, they're used constantly. It's one of the most obsessively popular sports I've ever seen in my years, and I love that people use them. I think it's fantastic. It's a great way for people to get out there, be active, spend time with friends. I love it. But I do not think it should be at the detriment of the neighbors and the other people using the facility. I can attest to the noise because I work down in the basement next to the gym, and they play 2 to 3 hours a day in the gym, and it's just one court. So having 6 of them, I just would be hard to stand if it was your outdoors living experience, trying to use your yard. So I just wanted to forward these along. I also wanted to forward some pictures of the material so that you can see what it will look like. You can also obviously look up the website and get a better idea on
We have the full-size shot here with, what appears to be green tarping. That's an example from another town.
Yes, it is. That was the best example I could find
Yeah.
for a picture.
I mean, it fits in fine.
It does, and I'm sure Scott explained to you that it's gonna go 3 ways around. It'll go by the neighbor on the right, across 135, and then when you're driving in. I really think it's going to take down the noise level when you are walking the tracks, when you're having a soccer game, whatever it may be. One of these was just built at Millis High School and was put on around their pickleball courts because it was so annoying to the people trying to go to school. And one of my commissioners is the principal at Millis High School. So I asked him, I'm like, can you please tell me if this actually works? He said it was wonderful. He said it made a big difference. So just having, somebody with experience with it was helpful. I also called Burlington. I called a bunch of other towns that have gotten this exact one, and they said it was very helpful. So that's why I decided to move forward in trying to get this particular one.
Now, you mentioned that it covers 3 sides. The exposed side would face
The
parking
pavilion.
and the pavilion. Do you feel like you should do all 4 sides?
Not really, because that side, the fence is only 4 feet high.
Oh, I see.
It wouldn't make a difference if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I didn't remember that.
But Scott said that there would be like a return of 6 or some certain number of feet on that lower side as well.
On the corners, yeah.
On the corners, yeah.
Yes, I'm just saying it's not gonna go all the way across, because
Yeah.
the gates are there and it's lower, so the sound is still gonna come over it, so we don't wanna pay the expense of.
Kind of like wherever the fence is high, it'll be
Correct.
covered.
Yes.
Makes sense. Questions from the committee? More about soundproofing? You can hear it now.
Well, they're fairly new in pickleball. I mean, the company's been around, they do a lot of this stuff around other things, but they're saying between 5 to 10 years. Doesn't sound like a lot, but hopefully we can take care of it and make it last a little longer.
What kind of maintenance is there in order to do that? Are there things you can do?
Not really. Walk by and tell it to last longer. No, there's not really any maintenance to it, to be honest. The other actual good part of this too is that the leaves won't blow in through the fence and stuff like that as well, so I think that will help out.
So how are they stored when they're not?
They stay on all year. Oh, we're leaving the nets up this year, all winter, so we'll keep them, they'll stay up all year long.
I bet they get used all year too. You know? Haven't had much snow yet, so.
Knock on wood.
Right. Anyone else? Well, we discussed it last meeting with regard to its applicability and affordability. It's expensive, but not a tremendous amount of money. I think that, I guess personally, I think we can consider it applicable to CPA by being an upgrade to a recreation structure. Certainly, we've done that in many other places in town, whether it be replacing playground equipment or other improvements. So in that sense, in that category, I think it has applicability. Is there general agreement on that?
Absolutely.
I appreciate that, and I know that the neighbors do too.
Yeah, that's,
The people that actually wrote this don't even live across, they live diagonal
Right.
on the other side of 135. And I actually went out there and stood in front of the house to listen, and it's very loud.
sure, they can't be the only ones affected by it, particularly the house right next to it. You know, so. But you don't want to lose your community support that you had in the first place for pickleball.
Seemed like such a perfect spot in the park.
Because you figured
It
the
was.
traffic would have kind of
Yeah.
rounded out, but I invite you all to sit down there for a couple minutes and listen.
Believe you.
Very well. Any other questions for Ally? Thank you. I
Can I
think
just
we'll-
add one thing? I'm
Sure.
sorry. I just wanted to thank all of you for your support on the Assabet Playground project. I hope that you've all had a chance to go down there and see it and watch the kids, and it's probably one of my most proud projects that we've done in town since I've been here. It's absolutely amazing. We went down this fall and we did the scarecrow projects that we do, and we spent time down there, you know, about a couple of hours, and just watching the kids have so much fun down there. It's amazing, and I think it's just wonderful that this committee is here and that this money is available to create such amazing venues for the people of the community. So I just wanted to say thank you for supporting.
You're welcome. I agree that project came out really well. I've been there a number of times, and ironically, I drove by this morning to take a picture. I wanted to start getting ready for town meeting, and I thought, I don't know why, I just did. And it was already 2 or 3 families out there on a random morning, you know, and cold, you know, but nobody seemed to care. So that's great.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can do more with parking and access and walkways around that as we go forward with more town improvements. So,
That'd be wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your effort, Ally. Okay, the next application to have a second review is the First Parish Church steeple restoration. We had a terrific presentation from Gordon and David. There again, great.
Good evening. I'm Gordon Hart again.
Good to see you again, Gordon.
Dave Sherman, service.
Dave, good to see you again. Thanks for coming back.
So we were here a month ago, and some things have changed since then, for the better. We told you we were gonna get some work done on our steeple outside of the money we're requesting, work that we would pay for, and it was done, and it's been tested by 2 nor'easters. We had a nor'easter at around the 12th or so of the month, 4 inches of rain and high winds. And then the following week, that was on, what, Friday night or something like that, and then the following week, the work was done. And then on the 18th, we had another nor'easter with 4 inches of rain and 50-mile-an-hour winds. And, you know, talking about the pickleball courts, you lost a tree down there that blew over. And that's the kind of conditions that we had. So that's absolutely the worst conditions. It's improved a lot. And we know we go up there and we have buckets and things for collecting rainwater. So there was before and after. However, there's still, under those conditions, there's some leakage. And if you look at photo 1 from the engineering report, these color photographs, and attach the engineering report to your application. And it's a photograph of the, figure 1, I'm sorry, of the, basically the steeple, or a drone picture. But that identifies these levels. There's the belfry level, level 3, and then the lantern level, level 4, which is, as we have this wedding cake steeple. Anyway, Chris Burgess, the steeplejack, took care of the leaks at the belfry level. So we replaced the rotten wood where there were holes that are showing in photos 1 through 4. He put in new rubber flashing and did it correctly, and so we're confident that he showed us photographs, so we're confident that work's been done right. We think there's still some leakage coming in up at the lantern level. That's up at a few much smaller, but there's still some leakage. So we're going to try to take care of that on our own.
A little higher to get to the bell level.
Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, we actually, we're trying to push Sprint T-Mobile to get their crap, I mean, their stuff out of the steeple, because there's still a lot of stuff in there. And this gentleman, Keith Johnson, is involved somehow. Stopped by yesterday, and Brian Swanson and I went up there with him, and you know, we've come to the same conclusion that it appears to be that what's coming in now is coming from a higher level. Doesn't involve any equipment, but you know, he gave us a good perspective of what T-Mobile's going to do by the 31st of March, including some restorative work, actually, you know, plugging holes and getting the cables out of it. Excuse me for referring to it as graphic, you know. If you look at the pictures, you know, there's all these extensuators and antennas and stuff like that. And, you know, no contractor's going to want to go up there with that stuff anyway. So that's the big challenge right now. We really don't feel that we're making progress. We're not giving up.
In the meantime, you know, our request for money is directed at structural restoration, which you can't really see from the outside. So structural deficiencies remain, and you know, we have a proposal from Minuteman, the contractor, to do a lot of work, including the work that we've just had done during the past month. So we're trying to address the leakage issues, but the structural issues remain. And nothing that Chris Burgess has done improves the structure at all. It's just trying to stop the leakage. Yeah.
And then there's the bell cradle stuff, which is kind of the end thing. The last thing is going to be when we go ding, ding, ding again.
Yeah, and that's structural as well.
Structural.
Anyway, so we're making some improvements on our own, but the big structural challenges remain. That's the need for this application.
Please.
Is it cell tower equipment that's in there?
Yes, we had 2 tenants in it until recently. The P&P was first in. When Sprint was taken over by T-Mobile, they didn't need the location anymore, so they basically did an active, but their contract runs through the end of March of this year.
And so your equipment is still up there?
Yeah, I'm really kind of pushing them now, you know. 'cause
To remove it?
part of it, yeah.
Okay.
And again, this guy Keith Johnson, like I said, he's not sure exactly what his position is, but he went up there and he said, I don't understand. It may have something to do with access to the control room in the basement, because we've been having a hard time getting in there, and that's where the batteries are, and
Mhm.
cables run down there and stuff like that, so. He pointed me out to it. He gave me a way that, hopefully I can move this ahead. At least get some information. Would really like them to come out and meet with us on site, so we can know what the plan is.
Right, so they're gonna temporarily remove it while the repair work is done, and then put it back up, or?
Oh, no, Sprint is pulling out.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, their equipment's
So
not being
will
used
there be
anymore.
no more cell towers on those?
Well, AT&T is still there, and, we're wondering, there's been talk about, someone replacing Sprint.
Another cell phone company.
Yeah, TV,
No, we don't need the name,
T-Mobile,
because we
no.
don't have a contract.
right.
But none of the cell towers or anything are,
They haven't notified us yet of that
okay.
intention.
Yeah, if you look at photo 19 from the engineering report, that's an interior photo. They're primarily focusing on rotten wood that's up in there, but you can see some of the electronic equipment, and I believe all that is T-Mobile, right?
Yeah,
So it's been, the cables have been severed, yeah, but it's in the way. It needs to get out of there before Minuteman or some contractor would go up there and do the work. And it should be taken out per their contract. There's no rush at this point. I mean, a couple months is not a problem in that sense. And there's some water coming down the stubs of old cables in one particular corner inside the bell tower, so it's kind of a suspicious area. Those cables go all the way up into the lantern level, where we think there's still some leakage.
Is there any concern that they were contributing factors to some of this leakage and damage?
That's been thought all along, but you're going back 25 years to when the first cell phones were put up there. I don't, Sprint T-Mobile wasn't one of them.
well, we have a Chris Burgess opened up a panel there, and the cables go up the chaseway to the antennas, and the antennas don't go outside, they're inside. So, the guess is that there's still, damage to the fascia boards or the siding up at that level, and it's coming in at that level, and then going down through. So it shows up on the stubs of the cables and stuff like that, but it's not coming out of the cables or anything like that. And the area up there, isn't real wet when it's dry. So it's just some more exterior work that needs to be done to stop the rain, but again, then there's a whole lot more structural things
Sure.
to keep these people there and keep development.
Yeah, we just need to do all this and then have that continue to be a problem.
Well, as far as the leakage goes, we're trying to take care of that now on our own, but
Yeah.
right, the leakage is continued leakage.
And
It
they
leaves wood, so it's an issue for us.
They're using composite materials, high-tech materials to protect that area.
Well, Chris Burgess, you're
Chris
out there.
Burgess and doing everything.
Yeah, so we're confident that the wood that he tore out and then replaced with synthetic, that's gonna last a long time. I mean, maybe infinitely, being a synthetic.
Is the AT&T equipment still in there as well? Are they still attending?
Yes, yeah, they're using that. And their antennae are up in the lantern level, and what I call the very top of the antenna.
Does the presence of the AT&T equipment interfere with the desired work or not?
The contractor was gonna have to, work with AT&T to come up with a plan. AT&T has been up there doing some structural, modification. I mean, that's how I learned about the whole thing 4
see any of it from the outside, which I needed to reference you to photo 19. I mean, that's what's in there.
Mhm.
And, yeah, you stand out there and look at the steeple, you don't see any of it comes.
So that was the 20,000 that you were thinking that you were going to spend?
Yes,
So that has been spent already.
pretty much. We have a little bit of reserves in case the contractor comes back and needs to patch something. We're not quite sure what, at this point, what remains to be done, but we, we can identify it, but, counties take care of it on their own, and the sooner the better. That Labor Day with nor'easters, but you can never be sure. We had one a year ago on the 23rd of December, and then, we had these two in December this year, and it seems to be the month of nor'easters.
Any other questions for these guys? The report's very thorough. You've got all the bases covered on the documentation, which was a large improvement from last year when you really didn't quite know what you were going to get into. So you seem to be in a good position. We talked a little bit in the last two meetings about the applicability of the project and a building that also functions as a church. This criteria really seem to come down to, does the project benefit the community at large, not just the members, for instance, of the church? And I don't think there's any doubt that it benefits the community at large, whether it's just hearing the bell or that the building is part of a major historic district. And the property is used by multiple groups, not just churchgoers, as you expressed previously. So I don't think we have a problem coming down on that side of it as far as applicability for CPA money. And when you presented last year, we had more applications, competition for the money, if you will. And those are the reasons for us denying it last time, but I do feel like everything's in a better position this time around. Any other comments, members?
Agree with everything you said.
Yeah, I think we're in a good place to evaluate this time around. And we will do that. So I don't think we need any more information from you. The application is terrific, like I said. So we'll take it to the next step.
Thank you ever so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Always a pleasure to work with you.
It's good to see,
Thank you.
great to see that building continue on. The next application on the agenda was the Aqueduct Historic Marker, which is really the replacement of the marker the committee originally approved and town meeting voted a few years back. I guess I would love for the original to be found, but it appears to be occupying someone's historic basement, perhaps, I don't know. So in the, and here again, applicability, it's a bit tricky. We're not actually buying a property, acquiring a property, restoring a building per se. But personally, I've come down on this as being a part of the overall restoration and recognition of the aqueduct. We know we have an ongoing project, I should say, study, engineering work that was already approved at town meeting to bring back access to walk at the top of the aqueduct. I got a brief update from Lori Connors, our planning director, that there were some delays around that with regard to getting Mass Water to I guess, bring information, but we've passed that point, so maybe there'll be a little more progress.
On the,
On-
on the aqueduct bridge?
Yeah, right, this is,
So unfortunately, I did reach out to the design engineer, but I believe he's on vacation, so he hasn't responded. Unfortunately, in order to progress the project, they needed access to the aqueduct itself. And we have not been able to receive a response back from the MWRA representative. It took from August until 2 weeks ago to finally hear back, despite multiple phone calls and multiple emails, so a little bit frustrating. And the lack of inability to access the tunnel meant that the project was kind of at a standstill. So I am hoping to get a response to my email with a detailed time frame on progress. Of course, they still have not accessed because there needs to be some change in language to the 8M permit. So until we get the new language to the 8M permit and they actually access the tunnel, they're not going to be able to make progress. So I've been assured that they are working on it. But I don't know what that means. Hopefully it won't be another 4 months before progress is made.
is it fair to say the vast majority of the budget approved at prior town meeting, it's still sitting there? They really haven't put many hours against it.
They have not,
Okay.
no.
So we just continue to wait. This is inconsistent with years even before your arrival in town.
Well, the good news
They
is
don't
the
seem to want
dog
to talk to
park
us.
is,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
hopefully at Monday's Conservation Commission meeting, that project will be approved. And then the next step is to give the final design and the bid documents to the Stanton Foundation. They're also looking for an updated cost estimate. God willing, we will receive the $250,000 that we have requested once we submit those documents. And then we can go out to bid as soon as possible. Hopefully, a worst case scenario is the beginning of February.
Terrific. Good.
So that project is moving.
Any updates from the city of Marlborough about the water access?
No, we've been waiting for the arrival of the new
Oh, new mayor.
mayor. So we are, hopeful
Yeah.
that there will be a change of feelings towards the town of Northborough, and we will be able to hook in, especially because I foresee that there will be a number of Marlborough residents who will be enjoying the dog park.
Good, good. Thank you. A little off topic, but appreciate the update. So we'll, any more discussion on the aqueduct marker? I think we kind of know what it is. So. Very good. I'm going to make a recommendation, if you're okay, with bringing forward the affordable housing agenda item and saving the conservation fund item for after that. I have a reason for that. So, Rick and Ray, any updates you have for us?
Really no updates, it's, the basic request to build that, affordable housing reserve for a back up to $500,000. Explain the application, so we can come up with that number with the 26 cents after the, having the bills that were paid from prior approval. So these still exist, there's a lot of potential for things to happen in the next year or two, and so having the 500,000 in reserve would be a good number to have. We found that in the past to be a good number. It's helped us get some nice projects, completed. Once again, the main thing is just to make sure that, if we do decide to approve the funding, that the warrant article gets written, in a way that allows the CPC and the selectmen to authorize the spending without having to go back to the town meeting. Effectively, to do it in the past, so I'm sure that, just looking back at the prior warrant articles and pirating out language, is the way to do it. That'd be the key administrative thing, as far as making sure that as projects came up, we could just sit before you guys and then the select board to get approval to actually use them.
So ultimately, it's the committee action you're asking for is reauthorizing 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019 monies unallocated, and that's the 373,144.
Except 2015 has been completely extended,
Okay,
so it's the balance of 2016 and then 17, 18.
forgive me, okay. And then the new amount of request, 126,855, 65 cents. To be clear, that would be a new round of funding to the NAHC, subject to the funding agreements consistent with previous years. If approved, you would then have up to 500,000 available to the NAHC.
And then as you see from the spreadsheet here, there's additional affordable housing money outside of that, which is a combination of unspent money from prior projects and 10% affordable housing that was set aside in 2023, 22, and 21 town meetings. Those 10% weren't allocated to any project, so the sum of those three 10% plus the money left over from projects that wasn't spent adds up to that 279,863. So if you add that number to the 500,000, then in total would be the amount of money set aside for affordable housing. The proviso is that the 279,863 would be warrant articles and town meeting approval. So let's say we came before the town with a $600,000 project. We take 500,000 of our reserve, and we have to get town meeting approval for the other 100,000, for example, out of that 279,683. So that money exists, but needs town meeting approval for use. 500,000 we're talking about tonight would be approved through the CPC and the select board.
Very good. As you're talking about the reserves, both in the CPA reserve account and the NAHC's money, it brings to light the article that you shared on an email, and it was in the Boston Globe. It's editorial, actually, right? Just commenting on overall in Massachusetts, although affordable housing is one of the three key tenets of CPA, it's really being underserved in the big picture. And in some cases, even in our community's best interests, sometimes funds are more apt to go to land preservation, but not necessarily the construction of any housing property on that land, and so on. So I know we bring it up at every town meeting. We try to point out that in our own pie chart, if you will, the percentage toward affordable housing does not quite meet what we've done in open space and recreation. There's obviously a lot more useful projects that come before us for that. And then in historical preservation, primarily the White Cliffs expenditure, but others have made those two categories larger historically. So we've got a lot more work to do. This is still a very reasonable request that you're putting forth, and I know if there was something bigger that you'd come for it. So I think we have to continue to look out each year for more opportunities. I try to do another bigger project. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, it didn't come to pass, but you guys do your best to find every small opportunity, and for that, you're to be congratulated. We appreciate it.
Well, we are on the lookout, we have certainly potential for this Congress Street land is not being used for the dog park. We're working with Habitat for the possibility of affordable housing in the easterly part of that property, which could be small, medium, or large-size project. That's another project that's dependent on the city of Marlborough deciding whether they can allow us to use their water and sewer and not have to put septic and wells on that property. So we put a much bigger affordable housing project on that property.
Might want to factor in soundproofing from the dog park.
As a matter of fact, I was with the executive director of the Greater Habitat for Humanity. That's someone who's going to make an introduction for her to Marlborough. Maybe she's going to be speaking to him fairly soon on that project. So there's a couple of Northborough angles towards trying to connect to the so.
I was only half kidding about the soundproofing, by the way. Not even half.
So we'll see what develops there.
Good, thank you. Well, we know our work, and we'll bring it to the next step. It definitely looks like easily affordable, and obviously no question about applicability and support for affordable housing. So thank you.
Okay. Once again, thank you for your consideration. I'll be available to answer any other questions.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so that leaves us with the last application is that's sponsored by the Open Space Committee, which I will now speak on behalf of. We also have Leslie on the Open Space Committee who can help me out. The application is for $350,000 that we recommend to be put in the Conservation Fund as we have done consistently at several previous town meetings. That fund has been used successfully to acquire open land and properties outside of the town meeting cycle when sale opportunities came up and conservation opportunities came up, we were able to use that fund. The fund currently has about $664,000 that is monies put in by previous town meeting vote, CPA funds from previous town meeting vote that are still unexpended. There's another $60,000 or so that was it's either interest or prior conservation fund money. It certainly could be used for the same purpose, but it was not CPA restricted money. But my point is with the 350, the amount of conservation fund money available for open space acquisition would exceed $1 million. We, in the application and in previous presentations, we talk about the outreach that the Open Space Committee does with landowners in town, making sure they know that the town is in the business of acquiring property if they're willing to sell it or put a conservation restriction on it, trying to give them options other than selling to developers. And that's been a successful strategy. But we did not have any imminent purchases to share other than some opportunities that we were pursuing that might be a year or two down the road. However, since our last meeting on December 7th, the town was presented with a purchase and sale agreement and a notification that the property at 432 Whitney Street would be potentially taken out of Chapter 61A if sold to the current potential buyer. With that program, the town has the right of first refusal to acquire that land instead. The purchase and sale price is $1.7 million, and forgive me, I did not bring the full property info, but 35 acres, does that sound right, Lori?
I think it's 24 acres.
Thank you. And the property to orient you geographically, if you're driving Whitney Street from Northborough toward Berlin, you cross the aqueduct and the railroad tracks. This is the property on the right, what would be sort of the south side of the road. It's important to note the owner of this property is also the owner of 429 Whitney Street, which is the property on the left, or the Anza farm. However, there's no activity on the current land other than an old trailer. But the potential buyer would be turning it into industrial land and also potentially putting a spur into the railway. So there's concerns around that, but not really the concerns of the Open Space Committee, where the Open Space Committee is in the business of reviewing potential purchases of land. So we did review that again at a meeting on December 18th? The week before Christmas. Anyway, the result was a unanimous vote to craft a letter recommending that the town purchase the land and putting that forth to the select board. It's my understanding that the planning board has authored and approved a similar letter by unanimous vote. And so we are bringing up the opportunity to the town to acquire that land. The timing is complicated. You're supposed to act within 120 days of receiving the purchase and sale. So I'm not here to comment on that per se, but the point is that there seems to be an opportunity where, by all means, the conservation fund money would be needed, and maybe more, and the additional funds might and could come from other CPA resources, be it reserves or town meeting vote for bonding against future funds, just as a suggestion. There's not an application, there's not a proposal to bring that to the table today, but we may, and I'm going to recommend at the end of the meeting that we keep our open hearing open toward our next meeting, which would likely be the first Monday, February 1st in February, unless there's a need to meet sooner. But it certainly supports the application before us for the extra conservation money. So I wanted to put that information out to all members since it is kind of recent news.
December 20th. It was December 20th. And why February 1st? That's a Monday, normally would be the 4th, which would be the Thursday?
Isn't that a Thursday?
It is Thursday.
Oh, okay, you said you said Monday, sorry. Okay.
Forgive me.
Because I'm gone that Monday, okay.
That would be our next meeting date, so. I wanted to put that out, and I wanted to have the discussion on the Conservation Fund money last. It's the largest number of our applications, and put that in context with the potential budget that we might work from. So, you know, how do members feel about making some determinations tonight, certain votes on approval or not? At least bringing down part of the list, or should we wait until the next meeting?
I'd vote. There's some of these you can certainly vote on, I think.
Very good.
I apologize, I missed the rationale for not voting on all of them tonight, for keeping the hearing open. Sorry.
I didn't really give an argument or rationale,
Okay.
only that in light of what I just spoke about, and the potential that there may be another request before us, I would recommend keeping the hearing open.
Okay.
And I recommend we meet again on February 1st. It might be rubber stamping of anything we do tonight, or it might be review of new information, or there could be very little on the agenda, but I want to keep the hearing open for that purpose. Is that sufficient explanation?
I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess are you concerned that it wouldn't pass tonight, but there more information would be available in a week, in a month, that would cause us to approve it, or?
I'm not concerned so much as it's a
Or
possibility.
why? So to increase the, okay.
In order to consider that application, the public hearing would have to remain open. Otherwise, we'd have to re-advertise.
Okay. Got it,
It's an
okay.
expense.
Got it, okay.
Sure.
Thanks.
And by the way, there, as with anything, there could be an argument among the committee to not feel the open space conservation money is as important, that reserves are important and so on. We had similar discussions last year about trying to keep the reserves as high as possible. We now have the unreserved account, meaning those CPA funds not yet allocated to one of the three categories, meaning that they have flexibility to be used for a project from any of the three categories. That amount is $1,060,000, I'm sorry, yes, $1,060,000 approximately right now. And that's from the revenue received in the previous fiscal year, and money's not spent at the last town meeting, so it's probably a higher reserve than we've ever had. But, you know, there was another big project that we talked about that was out there on the horizon, that being White Cliffs, but we don't have plans yet for White Cliffs. There's not a project before us in this cycle. There's not a plan before us yet, so it's hard to judge what monies would be needed or could be used from CPA toward White Cliffs. It's just going to take more time. So your question was about why would we keep the open hearing open, and I have answered the same,
No,
I hope.
Yeah, I understand, thank you.
But anyway, back to the budget. So as we get ready to approve different projects, we look at what we know we have to do, and one of those things is the next White Cliffs bond payment that we pretty much need to bring forward, or at least vote to bring forward every year. Going back to the notes from Town Accountant Jason's presentation in October, the amount needed on the bond is 180, but however, there's something called a premium reserve that he would have to explain to us before we craft the warrant language, but at any rate, that amount is $11,399. So I did the math, and the amount that we would need to consider is $164,641 for the White Cliffs bond article. Everybody understanding of that?
Do I make a motion? Should I make a motion?
We're always free to make a motion.
I make a motion that we fund $164,641 for the White Cliff bond out of new revenue.
Second.
Motion by Andy, second by Leslie. Thank you.
Don't we typically take that strictly from new revenue?
Yes, is that
Traditionally,
what
we
the
have-
motion said?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's always the right policy. Agreed?
John, do you know how many more payments we have on that one?
I think this is the
fourth
to the last.
What's that?
I think this is the fourth to the last.
Okay.
Yeah, 28, it's like the last one.
There are three more, if this one was approved. Slightly less amounts at each one,
Yeah.
so.
So you have 655,359 left in that new revenue.
So this is new.
John, can you write that a little smaller?
You can't read it?
It's fine, I'm just being a jerk tonight, sorry.
You are.
Oh, my God.
It's okay, we look exciting. The affordable housing reserve is 279,863. And the unreserved, 1,060,714. Okay, so the White Cliffs. We'll leave us with plenty of new revenue. Very good. Any other questions on the White Cliffs amount?
Just one, do you think there'll be a plan to do anything with that before we pay off the bond completely?
We're working on it.
I personally have no idea.
Seriously, then what happens?
Well,
Yeah, I mean.
You know, the town owns it, so this is basically paying the mortgage.
Yeah.
I
And
had a discussion with
that's
the
not gonna go
county
away.
administrator today. Part of the challenge has been a lack of clear direction on what to do. And we've been talking about going out, doing community outreach to see what the citizens want to do with White Cliffs, whether there's an appetite to use it for potential town hall or community space, so keep owning the property, or whether they want to just sell it with the requirement that there has to be a preservation restriction, or whether they want to sell it without the requirement, in which case the building will, chances are, be demolished.
I thought that
So-
couldn't happen because it was purchased with CPC funds.
Well, if you remember, we had the presentation by Stuart, and that question was asked. And any sort of profit from the sale would have to go back to the CPC, is my understanding. So,
Property, you know, he narrowed it down pretty succinctly. The property would have to sell at market value. Those funds would return to CPA reserves. But more importantly, it was purchased with CPA, so it under that, it has a historical restriction qualification. But the historic restriction formally was never done, has never been done. So Stuart was saying, it doesn't matter if you hadn't done it. You have to treat it as if you had done it, which means that if you want to remove the property from that requirement, it needs to be approved by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. That's the biggest hurdle, if I understand correctly. I don't know how easy that is.
Yeah.
So, should that be approved, then the town would have the right to sell it without the restriction on it. You're assuming that a buyer wouldn't want to buy it with the restriction, since it would limit what they could do with the property, which was the question at the very beginning of this before the town bought it.
so we have received a couple of proposals from vendors who would do community outreach services. I did reach out to the DBVW, who is the consultant team that prepared the feasibility study and the reuse assessment. So they provided a quote for coming out, kind of laying the groundwork of what has been done to date. These are some of the challenges with the building. These are the reuse scenarios that were examined as part of that study. This is why they were chosen, and this is the result of that analysis. And then we received another quote from a community outreach firm, and they propose doing a whole variety of community outreach efforts. So it would include a couple of workshops, a couple of community meetings, reactivating a website for gathering public input, as well as doing a video of White Cliffs, so it was clear what the existing conditions of the building are, and that could be put on the webpage as well as used during the various community outreach sessions. So the dollar figure associated with that is about $17,000. So right now I have zero money. So that is the big challenge, is that we need money to go forward with community outreach. It doesn't look like that is something that would be eligible under CPC funds after hearing Stuart speak. So we are going to approach the select board about using ARPA funds. So that will be in a couple of weeks, not at this meeting that they're having next week, but the following meeting. So we'll see if they want to invest in that. There is another effort that I've been working on to develop a scope of work for architectural services to demolish the 1960s and 1970s additions So of course, the premise is to comply with the U.S. Department of the Interior standards. So we would need architectural expert. The cost associated with that, ballpark figures, anywhere from $85,000 to $125,000. It would probably take about 6 months. Once again, money is a challenge. We would have to go out to bid because the design services would exceed $30,000. So there are a couple of different sources of funds. When I spoke to the town administrator, he didn't want to pursue that until after the community outreach effort is undertaken, because what if the decision is to sell the property, then what use is it going to be to demolish the additions and absorb town money in order to do that?
Why not
So-
use the admin fund for the outreach? I mean, we can use it for appraisals and legal fees and that kind of junk. Why wouldn't be able to use, 'cause the way he explained it was, it is money that we can use to help us make a decision. And it seems like if the community outreach piece gives us a direction to make a decision, that's at least as valuable as an appraisal.
I guess
When
the-
I heard his response, to me, it sounded like that would be ineligible use of administration funds. But of course, it's your money.
He doesn't make,
Control
doesn't decide the issue.
Well, he gave us guidance that was defined as the admin fund should be for the business of this committee. And we have probably stretched that by applying it to, future efforts that follow the project. I think what it comes down to in this case, if there was an application that was written to use CPA funds for the demolitions or the first steps of restoration, it's with some scope to it, it would be an application on which we needed information to judge. It would be the only way you could go down the path of saying, let's use the admin account for these consultants.
Couldn't you put an application in for the community outreach?
But then you have to apply that to applicability of CPA funds. We're not, that outreach effort all by itself is not acquiring,
Right.
preserving, restoring
CPC function.
anything, tangible.
Too many lawyers.
Pretty flexible.
The town warrant article for that money?
Well, the fastest
Wouldn't that be
path
fairly
forward
straightforward?
is to use ARPA funds, because then we don't have to wait to town meeting in order to move forward. I would like to move forward with the community outreach as soon as possible, so that we have a path forward. If the select board authorizes the ARPA funds, I think that's the best case scenario. If they don't, then we'll have to do it as a town meeting article. There really is no other option. So,
Are ARPA funds immediately available once approved?
they are. It's a pickle, unfortunately. So it's like that chicken and the egg. It's just so difficult to move forward on this property.
Nobody's asking you to rehash it. We've all kind of lived it. All right, so in the meantime, we got to pay the mortgage, so to speak. Is there any more question on the motion to bring forward to town meeting $164,641 to pay the next White Cliffs bond payment? Hearing none, we have a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? None, so we have a 9-0 vote. Thank you very much. We also often look to, speaking of the administrative fund, which is for the purpose of the business of the committee, we're allowed to allocate up to 5% of new revenue. We tend to ask for the maximum amount, ask the town for the maximum amount, knowing that if we don't use it in this committee, it goes back into the unreserved account of CPA. So still the town's money. We're not spending it anywhere else if we don't use it on fees, legal expenses, and so on. People sometimes ask, what are we using it for? It does go towards paying clerical fees that are used in this committee for minutes and so on. It does go for paying the dues to the Community Preservation Coalition, of which Stuart is the director, and very helpful to the town. So things like that are a no-brainer. And otherwise, if we don't use it, it goes back into the unreserved. So I have calculated that at 41,000, and we could make a motion to do that, or another amount as any member sees fit.
I move we allocate $41,000 for the administration fund from new revenue.
Second.
Seconded by Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion? Opposition? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None, so we're 9-0 on that.
That gives you 614,359. 359.
Should be a 9 in there, yep.
So you could have Jason Littlesmith, he's coming back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't like it once,
Can we go straight to motions if we're so moved to do that?
Sure. Want to go in order of the, of my spreadsheet or the agenda, either one? The next application was pickleball soundproofing. So sure, is there a motion to be
We
made?
allocate $54,500 for pickleball soundproofing from new revenue.
Second.
Leslie and Jeff, team again, thank you. Any questions about it? Or any concern whatsoever about making pickleball quieter in Northborough? It's like a campaign slogan, right? Whack your ball more quietly. I think we need to add some money to it to buy some of those special quiet paddles that are coming out with it.
There you go.
Should stock them on the fence down there.
After this, it came up on the feed. I'm like, oh, it's listening, because there it is. Quiet pickleball paddles.
All right, all
Tell you
joking.
though, I don't get that for banners, which are, looks like pretty darn similar stuff.
Yeah,
It would be like, we could wrap a banner around it for about 10, you know?
Right.
Really.
Probably put graphics on it too.
Could put graphics on it too. And I wouldn't even have to install it tightly because it's loose. It's the element that creates the sound barrier.
Put you in the bid list for this.
Who knew?
Graphics and sound
We're gonna
barrier.
go into the colorful soundproofing.
All right, all kidding aside, this is serious stuff. Any other questions on the motion? All in favor of the pickleball softening?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Great, we are in favor. 9-0 on pickleball. And that was from new revenue, right?
Yep.
Yes.
4 or 5? Do the math for me again?
559,859.
Thank you. That is left. Okay, the next application we considered was the First Parish Steeple project. Those guys have worked really hard on it. Probably the most thorough CPA application ever. And I guess We have a little discussion about applicability, community need. Does anybody have any input, different opinions on that?
I had some memory trace that this project in particular was going to be run past town council. Did that happen, or am I misremembering?
I think you might be misremembering. I think I recommended not doing that for fear that we were going to be boxed in on an answer that we didn't necessarily want to follow.
So there's discussion of that, okay.
But maybe somebody did and they didn't know about it. But
You don't want to hear the answer to it?
Because the consensus seemed to be
No.
not to do
We took your advice, and I think it made more sense to, based on what we knew, and what we heard, and clarified with Stuart Saginor's presentation too, we can justify it meets the criteria of those projects that have gone forward. So I think this committee should feel free to vote on it, and if staff or anyone feels that, council looks at all the warrant articles anyway. If staff feels they should look at that one in more detail, we'll deal with it then. Is that fair? Very good. Anybody in the mood for a motion?
I make a motion that we move $210,000 out of new revenue for the First Parish Church steeple application.
Second.
Andy or Sean?
Sean.
Thank you. Millie, and motion by Millie, second by Sean. Any other discussion? Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are all in favor. Excellent. Now we're getting into the good math. I think I can even do this one. Okay, it brings us to the infamous aqueduct sign.
Move that we support the aqueduct sign project for the amount of $4,729 from new revenue.
Second.
It was Leslie and Jeff team again?
When you share seats, you share like votes and brains.
Is that from new revenue?
Yes.
Anything to move the legislative process forward?
Can we fund an extra $5 for vandal-resistant hardware?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like a,
Includes that, doesn't it?
what was it, like blue Loctite? Is that what we came up with?
The Loctite.
I feel like it needs to be better than that, but, how about an actual lock? Huh? Fair enough. We'll go with their number. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We're getting a new sign. Nicely done. 47.
Three, 4, 5, 1, 3, 0.
Many thanks. Okay. Now you see where the math problem gets a little more complicated. The conservation fund amount could not be completely funded by the remaining new revenue. The affordable housing article obviously could. And we talked about that first anyway, so let's bring that back up to the table.
So I'd like to make a motion first to, is it extend or extend the $373,144.35 from CPA funding voted on 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 of the unallocated funds. I guess I rephrase that from the unallocated funds from 2015, 2016, 2017, 18, and 19.
And you amend the motion, I think Rick Leaf pointed out previously, 2015 has nothing left. So it's 16,
Oh,
16, 17, 18, and 19. That's all.
oh, okay, he had it in here.
Yeah, I didn't, you got to read further, but
Okay.
Priority says extend to June 30th, 2025.
one more fiscal year, right? Okay.
Maybe the last paragraph of the application
Right.
Yeah, that's one.
is the years to be extended.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was looking up above it where it still had the 2015. Okay, all this funding would be, where's the extension deadline?
June 30th, 2025.
Go to the very last sentence and just,
Yeah.
Next paragraph.
could basically make,
Extension of,
that could basically be your motion, I think.
I'm sorry,
Very last page,
very last page, I'm in the last page. Oh, I'm sorry.
very last two lines basically could be your motion, I think.
Be extended, yes, and the approval funding be extended until June 30th, 2025. I apologize.
Very good. Motion by Andy, is there a second? Second by Millie, thank you. Okay, so this vote is not with regard to the current year CPA budget, but with regard to extending those unallocated funds from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019 until June 30, 2025, to make it available to the NAHC. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, very good, so that vote's in. I want to take a stab at the next section, Andrew?
Well, this is the one where you want to do some math, because we have to take the 10% out for affordable housing from new revenue.
Well, we can take as much as we want from new revenue.
I know, but you would need to then take an additional fund for conservation, right? Is there
Yeah.
nothing else, is the,
It's just,
I guess soundproofing would be,
Let's just vote I'm sorry, let's just
Keep
make a motion with regard to the affordable, the
Okay.
affordable housing application by itself.
okay. I move that we, what's the word all of a sudden? To fund $126,855.65 from new revenue to the Northborough Affordable Housing Corp.
Pardon me, before you finish your motion, can we round it up?
Okay.
The NAHC doesn't care, right?
Okay, then let's make it one,
Can we get rid of the cents, please?
okay, do you want to just, okay,
27,000.
127,000?
No, I was just, we're going to round it up a dollar, but you can.
$126,856.00 from new revenue to
Give me
the,
mine again, I'm sorry.
$126,856
From new revenue.
from new revenue.
And is there a second?
And
Second.
Seconded by Jeff. And so just to be clear, this is additional 126,856 even, also to be given to the NAHC, subject to the funding agreement as per previous years.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. So, this is new revenue, right? So this is AH to the NAHC. And it was 1, 2, 6, 856. Calculators?
218,274.
Thank you. Okay, so that leaves us with the last application is the Conservation Fund amount. And here, it's been presented, the amounts, the justification for the amount was presented. It's great to bring the con fund to $1 million, but it wouldn't buy the land that we talked about anyway, so there'll be other considerations. So I'm open to any motions, suggestions to consider the application, be it from new revenue, be it from unreserved, be it continued to the next meeting. Open for comment.
I'll take a stab at a motion if you like.
Thank you.
I move that we fund the conservation request of $350,000 from a combination of 131,726 from new revenue and 218,274 from unreserved. My math right?
Just to clarify, did you mean to say it the other way around?
Yeah, the categories, just switch them, that's all.
I thought we had 100, what do we have left?
We have
Okay, sorry about that.
274
I
new revenue.
amend my motion to reverse that.
I'll second that.
Second to the amendment.
Almost got it right.
Very good. So it's con, fund, and the motion was by Andy D., second by Jeff. So to be clear, that would use the remaining new revenue, 218,274, and the remainder from our reserves of $1,067,14, so we have plenty there. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks very much for that, on behalf of the Open Space Committee and all open spacers. So this is, comes to zero here. 218,274. And the other amount was 131,276. The only thing we've done out of the.
131,726, I think.
Right.
Totally forgive me. That was the motion?
It was.
I wrote it down wrong. Anybody want to fill out a calculator on that one for me? 1,067,14 minus this.
What is it, 131,726?
Yes, that's true.
John, if you have the spreadsheet
928.
handy, you could probably pop the numbers into the spreadsheet on your laptop quickly to confirm, but.
I have to open the laptop, wait for it to come up, put in my password.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You have
The audience can't see this.
928,988.
928,988. Still a substantial reserve. And our affordable housing reserve remains the same. And our others also remain at 0. Good work, everyone. Any comments, questions on what we've achieved?
Mr. Muley, at NEAC, we'd like to thank you all for moving this article once again. Continue support for what we're doing. We couldn't have done anything we've done so far without the community preservation money, so thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks to you. Your efforts are inexhaustible, it seems, and I don't know how long you can keep it going. I hope you can add more to your team, find more places to add them more than one at a time, right? It's great to do that, but the town needs affordable housing. The town needs to add housing. The state needs more affordable housing. It's written about. We talk about it. And our
Together we'll do.
yeah, our committees and boards, we got to get on the same train with it, so. This is one step forward, anyway. Thank you again.
John, if I could just add to that, the Housing Authority met last night, and we continue to discuss, the possibility of a project again at the property on Village Drive, and we're trying to identify additional funding sources, and I guess there's a new round of funding that just came out, so
Nice.
hopefully we'll be coming back next year with another proposal.
Potentially on the same site again.
Yes,
Yeah, good.
that's the desire.
Can I ask a question? If hypothetically the town purchased the property on Whitney, that would not be available for, because it borders right now, right, it borders residential, correct?
Yeah,
So
right now
the
it's-
conservation would prevent that from being developed in a way into affordable housing? If it's 24 acres?
Purchased for dual purposes. So you could allocate a certain amount of money for the affordable housing component as well as the open space component.
Not if it was,
And then it would have to be done as a comprehensive permit, because it's currently zoned industry. So housing isn't allowed otherwise.
sure, but if if foreseen that the mechanism would be the conservation fund, would that restrict it from being that, or you could still go forward and get us?
You're raising a technicality, which is a good one. I'd like to maybe reach out to Stuart and ask where it might have been done. I think that once you buy it, with CPA for conservation, it's under a conservation restriction. You don't build anything on it. It doesn't mean that the town couldn't possibly then go back and change part of it, but you were probably better off to approach it at town meeting up front.
Yeah. That's
Still
what I would
CPA, but it's-
recommend. So you're purchasing it for dual purposes.
Right.
So you will do a limited affordable housing element, and then the balance of the land would be firmly protected
'Cause there's-
open space. So that's what I would recommend.
Just looking at it, a chunk of it is wetlands anyway, right?
Right.
So there's a substantial portion that's wetlands anyway that wouldn't be developable. But
It's also abutting land that's owned by DCR for the purpose of flood control. So the land that is the backland that abuts that DCR land, that'd probably be better suited for open space than housing. So the housing would, ideally, would be done over by the frontage on Whitney Street with all the backland open space.
Yeah,
It would
because
be a really nice development.
Have you?
The
you or
lot
anyone
itself
staff
does not
evaluated
lend itself
just how
to.
buildable it is, be it for industrial or commercial or
I mean, it
residential
definitely
or
has
anything?
development potential.
I mean, the land
So,
itself, are there?
I have not walked the site, but Vinny, the conservation agent, has walked the site, and there's definitely a certain amount that is unbuildable because it's wetlands, and there is some topography issues. There is a high point, but that can be easily overcome for
Just curious.
development.
It's not really a parcel that would, like, lends itself into, like, the Green Street corridor or some other component of larger, sort of conservation corridors, or has any sort of intrinsic beauty for hiking or something like that.
There's some connectivity, but that could be maintained, you know?
Some of the connectivity, but the connectivity is a railroad, right? So it's not really like people go marching down the railroad, you know?
Well, the aqueduct too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good, you know.
but that's
a good
mostly
portion
the other
of-
side, the lot that no one,
The
that's not up for
bordering side.
sale. Yeah, that's the place they walk. They don't really walk.
Well, no, the aqueduct goes, you know. you
I know it goes
go
that way,
straight.
but it doesn't, you don't,
You can do a parking lot on this parcel and then to facilitate the hiking along the aqueduct.
yep. And a affordable house, 'cause if you're talking about property that has it, because isn't this one of the areas that we do have town water and sewer and things like that? No sewer? But at least town water and gas and other infrastructure in place.
Yeah,
Good-
I'll
good
have
question.
to
You
double
got a
check.
farmer across the street.
Yep.
There's a large industrial
there's
complex
lots of
next door. And I'm pretty sure that they have utilities.
I
Yeah.
don't think it's sewer though.
Yeah, I'll have to double check.
But to your point, in the whole market, when we talk about the lack of affordable housing development from CPA, they talked about a couple of towns have used CPA money to prevent affordable housing by doing exactly what you said. In one town, there was a project proposed on some land for affordable housing, and the town chose instead to use conservation money to turn it into a conservation area and restrict any housing from being built on it. So as a matter of fact, they used CPA money to prevent affordable housing.
Which, in that particular space, I guess if you were a resident in that area thinking that, not in my backyard mentality, right? You have the choice of an industrial space with a railroad track being added to you, or maybe an affordable housing component in there. You're right, there's, you can expect some opposition if it's brought up in town meeting as a dual purpose, purchase. But the short-sightedness of it would be,
Or you propose it as dual purpose, if it's not proposed that way, if it's approved as conservation land, that's the end of it for
yeah,
housing.
Yeah, well, those, those individuals that would oppose housing compared to, continued industrial, given the climate in this town about, trucking and industrial areas, I mean, you'd be a hard-pressed citizen to say no to both, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know, they
Kinda like-
shut down affordable housing at White Cliffs, right?
Yeah,
So
but
it's,
I'm
there's
making
no,
trying to make a point.
no shortage of people that would want to shoot it down just based on the scare tactic of it's affordable housing and out of my neighborhood kind of zone.
Maybe. There really is nobody abutting it, as you say, so it's got potential, so we should,
Are we sure, though, that by paying $1 million, or whatever it's gonna ultimately be, using conservation fund money isn't gonna do exactly what Mr. Leaf just said we're gonna do?
Well, that's, I just don't want to, it should be.
you can't buy it
Yeah,
all.
we
You
should
couldn't buy
know
it all
that,
with
right?
open
We should
space
know
money.
that we can't, if we
What's
do
the-
it, and
what's
then
the
all of a
purchase
sudden
price?
we can't,
1.7. 1.7 million.
No, so you're not planning on using only conservation, you gotta have other money for it.
No matter what.
So that, okay, there's your allocation, okay.
I mean, we don't really know what might come of it, but should it be a half and half kind of thing, then yeah, we gotta, another source of funding has to be had, and if it was CPA, then we can have that discussion.
But once again, if the decision was to fund a certain amount through available CPA money and bond the rest, and it's proposed as a conservation project,
Right.
that puts the restriction on how it can become developed housing. So it's just, something that's important, if there's a desire to do both, to present it,
Oh, absolutely.
to fund it in a way that allows both to be done.
Nothing we've done tonight restricts us either way. Maybe we talk about that at the next meeting.
It's all about having an option, that's all. It's so hard to get any type of affordable housing. True. So if we limit our options even more, it's not gonna help.
Can I, Andy and I heard this statistic last night, which was eye-opening, that there are close to 12,000 families in Massachusetts who formally have applied for housing. They're on the wait list currently, and almost 4,000 singles and couples on the wait list currently. And those are people who have formally put applications in for things like the housing authority properties. That doesn't include anybody else that might fall into the category of affordable housing, but just
Right.
hasn't put
I
an
mean,
application.
Separate from that is Habitat for Humanity has their own waiting lists
Right.
that have many people that they're trying to place in housing, so that's not public housing, it's private housing.
Big challenge. Okay, any other business to bring forth to the committee? As I mentioned earlier, I recommend we do continue the open hearing to our next meeting, February 1st, just in the event any new considerations come up. So I need a motion to do that.
I make a motion to continue the public hearing to the next meeting.
Thank you, Millie. Second from your teammate Sean.
There you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
All opposed? I'll assume it's a 9-0.
Real question is, do we beat Leland Harris?
Thank you very much, everyone.
They got a couple motions, they got a couple things, man.
Snuck in here in the beginning there.